Hi, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to discuss features of a function. Functions can be a little challenging to understand at first, but once you realize that functions are basically just equations, just written a little differently, it'll start to make sense. So, what is a function? A function is a relationship or expression involving one or more variables. This is where you have an input and output. Function is also another term for an equation. So in this video, we're going to talk about two types of functions. The first one we're going to look at is a linear function. So what I've created here is a table of just some basic vocabulary. So if we're looking at f of x equals mx plus b, m is your constant rate or your slope, how your input and output's changing from one term to the next. X is your input, b is your initial value or your y-intercept, and then f of x is your output. So how can I graph the function? One thing that I want to point out is if you look down here, I have f of x equals 2x plus 3. F of x is just the name of our equation. So when we go to graph it, we can look at line F. G of x is just the name of the equation. So when we graph it, we can easily identify which one's g of x. So let's look at graphing. So I'm going to graph f of x first. So I'm going to start with my b, which is my y-intercept, and that's going to give me 1, 2, 3. So this is my initial value. My slope or my constant rate is going to be 2. So this means that I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and the same thing going backwards, down 2 over 1. And then I can see that my line looks very similar to this. So this is going to be line f of x. So the only thing that the f of x and g of x does really, it just tells us the name of the equation. It's the same thing as saying y equals mx plus b. So now let's look at g of x. G of x has an intercept of 2. So here's my initial value. I'm going to go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. Let me just graph a couple points here, and then we can sketch our line. So our equation looks very similar to this. So this is going to be g of x. And so what that does is the g of x and f of x just tells us which function or line we're looking at. Everything else is just very similar to an equation. So this is for a linear function. So let's look at an exponential function. Same thing here. We have m as our common ratio. We have a ratio instead of a rate. B is our initial value or our starting point, y-intercept, x is our input, f of x is our output. So let's go ahead and look at f of x equals 3 to the power of x. So here, this is the same thing as saying that I have my initial value is 1 times 3 to the power of x. So this means that my rate of change is going to be 3. So if I'm looking at a table, so if my input is 0, that means that my output is going to be 1. Okay, and then here is being multiplied to 3. So then we would do, so 3 to the power of 1 is 3. So then we would get 3 here. And then this would give me 3 times 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can see that there is a trend where it curves. And the same thing with g of x. So we would have initial value of 2 times, so then that would be